Brothers and sisters, we continue this week with Blessed Charles de Foucauld, this most wonderful saint who had this incredible, insatiable desire to give more and more of his life to the Lord, to give up everything to pursue the heart of God in the desert, and not only just in the desert, but when he got there, he wanted to go further, and he'd end up going to this most remote part of the desert where there was this Tuareg people who there was no presence of Christ there, in terms of there was no Blessed Sacrament, there was no church, there was no gospel proclamation. And so he wanted to be a living Jesus, living witness to Jesus there in the midst of this desert. And he would minister to these people by presence, just first of all building up great friendship with them, by serving their needs, just being, as he would say, the universal brother. You know, brother of everybody that is created, because God has created everybody and loves everybody. And he would go there to also share with them from the joy of his heart the mystery of Christianity, which is that full revelation we believe as Christians of the heart of God in Christ. You know, that deeper revelation of who God is. Not that just that there is a God, but that God is actually a Trinity, that God has this most amazing plan for us that involves sacraments. It's the fullness, you could say, of the revelation of the life and mystery of God for us. And this is what we believe as Christians, unapologetically. You know, it's just our belief. We believe in Christ. We believe that Christ is the God-man. We believe that Christ is God, and so we could take his words authoritatively, and that what he has shown us as the means to get back to God in heaven, to find that fulfillment of our life, we can trust his words and trust his example. I want to return on two things say with Charles just very briefly. Blessed Charles can be a wonderful guide for us about prayer. And number two, just about that spirituality of abandonment, which he lived completely. He really gave himself to the abandonment of God, to really trust God as a father. And that beautiful prayer, I'll post that prayer in the chat afterwards, in the Heart Reach, and I'll post a comment on that after as well. I think it'll be very helpful. But first of all, for prayer, you know, I've spoken so much ad nauseum about prayer and contemplation, but it's always good to go over it again and again, because repetition brings conviction for all of us. And, you know, Blessed Charles would say, you know, prayer is something beyond what we could really even understand. It involves the very essence of our soul, where God is at work, raising the heart to God. But he gives a very simple definition, which I think is very beautiful. And if you want to know how to do contemplative prayer, or how to find this time for prayer, which is essential, prayer is essential for healing the deep root of sin in us. And this would be a lesson too from that famous Christian classic, The Cloud of Unknowing, that contemplative prayer, just entering the presence of God, knowing with this loving knowledge of God, that God is there and his light shines on us in prayer, and will start to heal those parts of our soul that maybe have tendency to sin. You know, we can know loads of things about our faith, but unless we give ourselves to this kind of prayer, I don't think we will find it very hard and struggle a lot to overcome the weaknesses, overcome the pains, the jealousies, the angers, the frustrations, the resentments. All these things are healed deeply in contemplative prayer. Okay. Blessed Charles says, praying is thinking of God while loving him. It's very simple, but this is it. Contemplative prayer is praying and thinking of God. Sorry, prayer is thinking of God while loving him. What could be much more of a simple definition? And it's true. But here he says that we have to hold these two together. Knowledge and love of God go together. They constitute the deepest contemplative prayer. So if we try to know God without loving God, it's not prayer. And of course, we can't love, but the reverse is different. We can't love God without knowing, because love is always presupposed by some knowledge. You know, love follows knowledge. You know, you can't love something you do not know. But, you know, we could study many things of God. But if we if our hearts are not aflamed with the effectivity of the will, of desire for God, of love of God in that moment, then it's not really prayer. It might be learning, it might be study. But study can become a way of prayer if when we study, we also love God in what we study about Him. So therefore, study becomes real prayer. So praying is thinking of God while loving Him. About the abandonment part, abandonment is not like a passivity to everything that just happens to you in life. It's an active trust in God in those events that come to us in life, seeing something of God's mystery in it, and knowing that even when it's the affliction of some evil upon my life, that God has the power to turn that to some greater good. And so we can do it fundamentally on the fact that God is a Father. And it's deeply rooted in that deep truth that God is a Father who loves us. And blessed Charles knew this. He discovered the Father and tenderness of the Father's heart, which made him trust the Father. And even with his own weaknesses, that the God